Hey, David McGuffin here. I am on the island of Ischia. You really can't tell I'm on the island because I'm down at sea level. But I want to introduce you to Travel Talk Tuesday on October the 12th, 2021. And tonight we're talking about one little village in the Cinque Terre called Manarola. Boy, last week I was there and spent a couple of days there and did a 10-hour whirlwind tour of all of the villages in the Cinque Terre. Last week we dealt with the villages of Monterosso and Riomaggiore, and tonight we're going to look at the one little village of Manarola, which goes from the seaside way up into the mountains and vineyards and then back down. So I hope you enjoy looking around with me and hiking the trails in the vineyards of the Cinque Terre and the village of Manarola. Okay, I'll be back with you after Travel Talk Tuesday's over tonight. But for right now, hey, your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring. Hey, David McGuffin here. I have made it to the Cinque Terre village of Manarola. And I just stepped off the train to review the trains in the Cinque Terre. The trains that are closest to the ocean, to the water, are going in the direction from La Spezia toward Levanto. In other words, they're heading in sort of the northwesterly direction. Trains that run next to the hillside, the mountainside, are traveling in the opposite direction from Levanto to La Spezia, sort of in the southeastern direction. So, right here behind me, I'm going to walk through this tunnel and into the village town square of Manarola. From the train station, this town doesn't look like much. But walking down the stairs over here through the tunnel brings you to the historic, charming city center. Just outside the train station, and before you walk into the tunnel of the town, there's the Cinque Terre Point office where you can get your information, buy your park passes, train passes, hiking passes, and get information about the national park and the town of Manarola. Again, tunnel leading under the mountains to the historic town center. Not quite as impressive as the tunnel in the previous village of Riomaggiore, but lined with placards giving you information about the town, the trails, and some of its history.
That's the way I'm thinking.
This is information about the local sweet wine called Cinque Terre. It's the dessert wine that's dried. The grapes are dried out into the sun and almost shriveled up like raisins and then fermented. Maybe you can make this out. This is a little motorized monorail train called a trenino that weaves up through the vineyards of the town here to help those who harvest the grapes get them all and not have to cart them all down the hill on their shoulders and heads. And exiting the tunnel takes you to the main square at the foot of town. A couple of signs. Back through the tunnel to the Via dell'Amore, which, as we've already talked about, is not there any longer, and to the train station. Going up the hill this way takes you to the top of town, the main part of town. Pretty steep walk up this street. There's a bankomat right there, all the way to the top of town, and the church, which we will eventually get to. By the way, the name of the street going to the top of town to the church up there in the bell tower is Via Antonio di Scavoli. We're going to turn around, not go uphill yet, but walk down in this direction to the harbor. This is about the only flat space in town. And in the late afternoon, it's where the locals gather, the kids play. Looking at the street, leading down to the harbor. Remember, that's out the tunnel to the right. Believe it or not, fishermen drag their boats even up this far from the harbor to store them overnight. And then in the evening when they go out to fish, they're dragged back down to the harbor, maybe 50 yards down there, and by a lift are lowered into the sea. So I've reached the marina, the harbor here of Manarola. This harbor, as you can see, the boats are moved out here and dropped down into the water by way of this lift. I'm about to burn up, so I'm going to try to make it down there and take a dip into the crystal clear blue sea. Remember how I mentioned all of these little towns have the water running underneath the current day streets, and back in the day of the Middle Ages everything was built up on the banks of the river running down the hill. Well, here's the river, the exit of the river from the mountain running through the top of town, running down into this pool here. And this pool is where the fishermen from that boom lower their boats down in the evening to go out to sea. This is a great benefit of Manarola, the modern day boat ramp, places for sunbathing, easy access to the water, beautiful swimming. You can't beat the view looking back up to the old town. I'd love to continue this little tour of Manarola live here and in person, but unfortunately my battery's running out and I need to get somewhere to recharge this. Plus I'm running out of time. So normally I would hike on up through here, up to the cemetery, up the hill, and then through the vineyards. But I'm just going to have to show you that video from some previous times that I've been here, so you get a little idea of what it's really like to be hiking here in the vineyards of Manarola. Hey, a great view looking from Manarola over to the train station at Cornelia, and up on the hilltop here is the town of Cornelia, some 360 steps up a switchback walkway. That's our next destination after this town. Well, my phone was dying and I I decided to come up here on the top of the hill in Manarola anyway, and so I walked into this little place, Nussen Dorma, which is up on the hill with great views across the harbor of Manarola. They were able to charge my phone. I had a little drink and some snacks and a whole lot of water, recharged on my phone. So now I'm heading out to the walk around Manarola. I may regret that, but I'm gonna give it a shot because I want to show you around what this little village looks like. So this walk I'm going to do starts above the tables of Nussen Dorma and progresses right here beyond the cemetery, which is right here, this wall above me. I'm gonna go down here to the end of the way, take a left up a steep steps, and then I'll be up in the vineyards of Manarola. Just a quick peek into the massive cemetery above Manarola before I begin the trek up into the vineyards. This is looking from the cemetery in Manarola to the train station in Cornelia. You can hear the bells ringing. It's 5 p.m. And I'm trying to make my way up to this walkway right here along the vineyards in Manarola. The steps begin. In Italian, they say take it slowly, slowly. Piano a piano. I won't bore you with my heavy breathing and huff and puffing getting up these steps to the top of the vineyard. I'll catch you when I'm up there. Final prayer at the chapel before I begin this trek. Hey, these grapes are ripe and ready to pick, but can you imagine doing that on this mountainside? Because you pretty much have to lay down on your back to get them off the vines. Thank goodness I made it to the top in this trail that traverses on one of the terraces around the mountains pouring into Manarola. You can see there's some old vines, and I don't even know if they're going to pick these. A peach tree down there. And on this side seems to be a well-maintained fig tree and some fruit trees, lemon trees as well. But now these grapes definitely have been picked. There's no fruit on the vines. And as you can see, a bit easier as well. This black visqueen cloth, in the summer, they pull it up over the vines to protect it from the heat and also from the birds from eating the fruit. As you can tell, looking toward the sun, almost southeast, east-southeast. That's the cemetery there, the harbor, and the trail leading around to the mountains, falling into the ravine of Manarola. Never a bad view. There's the town square, 5 o'clock. Some of the folks are coming out, hanging out in the shade. Look at those manicured vineyards across the way, up to a bit of the houses and the terraces above. You could just see how back in the, early Middle Ages, these terraces were hewn out of the soil, the mountainside here, and dry stones were stacked, called mura a secco. Dry stone walls were stacked to terrace everything, and we're walking on one of these terraces right now. So we walk down through here. And below is someone's orto with amazing looking tomatoes. And no wonder they grow so well with the views they have. You can see I'm going to come out above the church, which is at the top of town, and looking back up into the terraced vineyards. I'm glad I decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and do this walk. I haven't done it and filmed it in probably, gosh, since 2014. So it's a fresh look from up here, and to see how everything is getting on post-COVID pandemic. Well, you know, we're still in the pandemic, so I guess we're going to be dealing with COVID the rest of our lives here. But tourism is abounding a bit, but it sure is nice to be up here and not with a bunch of people on this trail. See my shadows stretching out here in front of me? The Italians, especially the predecessors to the Romans, the Etruscans, referred to this shadow as the shadow of the man in the late afternoon. Ombra della sera. From here you can see the main road, or the former riverbed, winding its way down through the center of town. It actually, we'll stop and take a peek, but it actually starts just right over here in this area, coming down from the hills over here beyond the church, running down like this. Okay, I reached the top of town. I'm at the main square up here by the church in Manarola. It's about 5:30. The locals are coming out and sitting in the shade of the tower here. But the town's going to come alive with action here in the next hour or so for the passeggiata. However, I'm going to scurry on down the hill and try to get to the next village, Cornelia, up on the hilltop before it reaches twilight. Okay, let's take a look at Manarola on the way down, but I'm going to scurry on down there. From here you can hear the rushing water below me, and although you cannot see it, we're looking down underneath the road bed, and this area here is the second story porches, or would be the street, the river level porches above the old river coming down through Manarola. And you can see the pilings here, the pillars that were supported on the banks of the river. I'm gonna try to duck down here underneath. You can see the running water down here, and let's see if I can zoom out, but the utilities are running underneath the street. And that's the old river. You can see how far down that is. That's just a waterfall flowing down right there. One last little look going down this hill. Glad we're not going up in Manarola. The route I've taken is the best. Going to the harbor, up by Nussen Dorma, the garden, and then walking the trail around the top of the village through the vineyards, and then down from the church, straight down this hill at a comfortable pace. Hey, your adventure starts right here from Manarola, Cinque Terre, with David McGuffins, exploring Europe. Hey, I'm in the village of Castelmecciola on the island of Ischia, and I'm at sea level, so you really can't see a whole lot, but I'm on the Bay of Naples. I hope you've enjoyed the look around the little village that we were in, the Cinque Terre, just 5 or 6 days ago of Manarola. It was a great time. You can see now I'm totally dressed differently. I got all the jackets on, the scarves and everything else. It's about 57 degrees down here. The weather has changed. It's the middle of October 11th right now. But I hope you enjoyed watching Travel Talk Tuesday tonight. I'll be back to you next week to talk about my new tour that I'm setting up way down here on the Bay of Naples, which I'm calling The Islands and Amalfi Coast. I hope you'll watch it next week to introduce this new adventure. For right now, thanks for watching tonight. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe.